All right, welcome back everybody. My name is Dustin. In the last video, we created the JSON serializer, and I left you guys with a small challenge to finish the save and load functions here for the TilemapLoader. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Hopefully you guys actually gave it a shot and tried to do this stuff yourself. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If not, no worries. We'll start adding it in now. What we're going to first need is to add in some includes. So let's include. We're going to want our core ECS, and then components, and then the component serializer that we made. And we're gonna want the registry, core, ECS, registry. We're gonna want the entity, core, ECS, entity. And we're gonna wanna grab our JSON serializer. So include Scion file system, serializer, JSON serializer. And we're going to need RapidJSON. We should have got RapidJSON in the last video. And I'm going to want the error. And error here. And we're going to want the logger. That should be good for now. Let's start with this. So the first thing I want to do here is create a unique pointer to a JSON serializer, sending in the Tilemap name. So we'll say std unique pointer JSON serializer. So we're gonna have to add some using here. Using namespace Scion file system, and then we'll want Scion core ECS. Awesome. So we have our JSON serializer, and we're just going to call this P serializer, and do this just null pointer for now, because if you remember when we made it, our serializer can throw when we create it, the constructor. So now we want to put in a try catch, and it's going to be catch std, make this const std exception. Deal with that then. P serializer is equal to std make unique JSON serializer, and that's going to take in the Tilemap file. Okay, so if that throws, we're going to say Scion error failed to save Tilemap. And that's just going to be S Tilemap file and X what, and then return false. So what I'd like to do here is actually see if the file was created for us. It's kind of like a fail safe here. So let's include file system. Include file system. And right here we can go fs path Tilemap path. So if we do fs here, we need to go namespace fs is equal to std file system. Come down here, Tilemap path, s Tilemap name or Tilemap file. Cool. And then we can just say if not fs exists Tilemap path, then we can say Scion error file path does not exist as Tilemap file, return false. This should actually say failed to save Tilemap. File path does not exist. Cool. because that means that when we open the serializer, it didn't create the file for us, but it didn't catch it here. It's kind of like a fail-safe. It's probably not necessary, but we're going to leave it in anyway. Okay, if you remember what we did, we have our serializer. Now we're going to want to start the document. P serializer, start document. Now this returns a bool. You could check a bool if you like. I'm not going to do it for now. It should work. P serializer, and then we're going to want to say start new array. And that's just going to call it, we're just going to call it tilemap. Then we're going to say auto tiles is equal to registry dot get registry dot view tile component. So we want to get all the tiles. We don't care about other things. Eventually we'll be saving the game objects. A game object and a tile, I want to separate them. So tiles are their own thing and game objects are their own thing. Okay. So now that we have all the tiles, let's actually make this bigger. So what I can do now is I want to loop through all the tiles. So for auto tile in tiles, these are just entities, right? So if we highlight this, that's just an entity. I'm going to want to start new objects and add all the components that we have. And then we're going to want to call our serialize function. Let's go to that in our ECS components. And then we have our component serializer. Okay. So I ended up making some changes here. In the last video, we had this one here, the serialize, where we send the component in like this, but I was able to do it. If we send in a reference, we can have all the same ones, right? So we can just do this here. See, these are all the same. And then we're just sending in a component reference. However, if you don't want to send in a reference and you want to get the component returned as a return type, then you can use these ones here, but I've set those deprecated. Okay, we're worried about serializing right now. So what I want to do is start a new object. So P serializer, and we're going to say start new object. And then we're going to say P serializer, start new object. And it's going to be components. Now, why do I want to start this new object here? So it's going to look like this. So we have, so let's just put a comment here. So we start a new object. We have an object right here, right? And then inside that object, I want to start another object, components, right? And that's going to hold on to our components. And then we're going to list our components here, like transform, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that's what we're doing here. Start new object, and this is just an empty object. And now we want to actually create our tile entity so we can easily grab the components. So we go auto tile ent, and then that's just going to be a new entity. That's going to take in the registry and the tile. Not that one, this one. Cool. All right, so now that we have an entity, we can actually grab all of the components and serialize them. So we want to go const auto reference transform tile ent dot, sorry, this needs to be equals, tile ent get component transform component, and then I want to say serialize component, and this is taking in our serializer. So P serializer, and our component is the transform. Cool. So we know that all of the components will have a transform, and it'll also have a sprite. So we can do the same thing here. Copy this down. All tile components will have these. Okay. We'll have a sprite component and a transform component. Let's change the sprite, and then we can send in a sprite. Cool. Now the rest of the components we need to check to see if it would have that. Okay. If tile ent dot has component, and it's going to be box collider. If it has a box collider, well, we want to do the same thing as above. We want to serialize our box collider component, and we should have done that already. Cool. If you haven't done that, make sure, well, let's see if I did it first. So we have all our serialized components to see the box collider. Box collider is right here. Go to this. So I've already done it. for us. So if you haven't done it already, make sure you go to the GitHub repository and grab the latest. This should be pushed. I should have all the components done. Yeah, so everything's done. Oh, except for physics component here for deserialize. That could be a good little test for you because it's up here for serializing it. There's a lot to the physics component. So maybe try to do the deserialize for the physics component as a little challenge. And I'll go over that, or I'll push the probably today or tomorrow, my implementation here. Make sure you just check to see how yours is. Okay, cool. So back to this. So now we want to get the box collider. So we'll just call it box collider. This can go in here. Change this to box collider. Box collider. Cool. Now it could also have a circle collider. So just do it again. Cool. And it could have an animation component and a physics component. So let's add those. So if animation component. And the last one we're going to do is physics. Now there's other components, but a tile will most likely be with these components. Physics component. We'll just call this physics. Cool. All right. So now that we're done looking at everything here, inside the for loop, since we open these two new objects, we have to close them. Okay, so you want to go p serializer and object. And this is going to be the components object. Then we want to do it again. And this one's going to be the tile itself, so the tile object. Cool. And then once we get here, we can end array. So p serializer end array. This is the actual tilemap array, or tilemap table. We'll call it array. I believe we started an array right here, right? And then once we're done, we can just go p serializer end document. And that's it. That should work for us, okay? So what I'd like to do is test this out before we go to the load, okay? So let's do that now. So what we could do is right here, close this down a bit. Go to our editor. Go to our displays, the menu display right here, and we'll be saving, right? Now we want to save our tile map. So what I need to do is include core loaders, TilemapLoader. And then we can go right here, tilemap loader, Scion core loaders, TilemapLoader. We'll just call this TL. Then we say TL save tilemap, right? So we need the registry. So what registry do we need? So what we're going to need here is the current scene. So we need to go include editor, scene, scene manager, and scene object. And then we can come down here back to where we were and try to get the scene. So we can go scene manager, get current scene, and that's going to be a pointer. Let's make this bigger again. So that's going to be a pointer, so we can go auto p current scene, and then we say if p current scene, then we want to do this. Right? Else, we can put a little error here. Else, Scion, error, failed to save Tilemap, no active scene. Well, we probably don't have to return there. That's at the end anyway, so we can just leave that. Probably don't want to return because there's other things that could happen. Okay, so, and then also save Tilemap returns a bool as well. So let's actually put this and go if not save Tilemap, then Scion, error, just failed to save Tilemap. That should be fine. And what does save Tilemap need? It needs the registry. So we get that from the scene. So P, current scene. Get registry. And then we need to send in, is that the correct kind of registry? Yep, that takes in a registry. Then this, we need to send in the file name. And that's just this here. File. And then we want to use JSON, yes, true. Cool. So that should work for us. If not, we'll fix any issues. So let's go and do this right now. Let's run it and see what we can do. Okay, so we got an error. Let's see what that is. Serialize issue. Ah, yes. So what we're going to do, because I must have just thrown that in. Let's go there right now. Let's open this up. This is causing a problem. My serialize of the right here. So get this, it doesn't know what this is. Now I made this here. I swore these should be made already. Yep, they're right here. It's saying that we could make this static. Core utilities. So why doesn't it see that? Let's just make these static for now. See if that helps. That should not be a problem. Oh, yes. See how we didn't do this here? So I need to do this. This will help a lot. I can say name space Scion core. You guys probably saw this already. Plug that in there. Cool. That should be fine. We can remove this. Yeah, so these are just little helper functions that I created to help us with the physics component. So all that is I have these two maps and it allows us to get different strings based on the types. That should help. Awesome. So we built, that's great. Okay. So what I want to do now is, do we have any scenes? Yeah, we have some default scenes here. So let's go and just create some stuff here. And we need to get some assets. We don't have any. So we need to run this like before. We're going to change that shortly. And we'll just do some hill tiles. And you know what? It doesn't really matter what we do at the moment. We just want to do whatever. Okay. Now it's slow because we're in debug right now and it's checking all that stuff. Cool. So we got some stuff here and that should be good. Let's go to File. Let's go to Save. That put us here in our default folder here, but I don't want to put it there. I want to put it in my desktop. I want to go to map test and I already have a test map here. That's look how long ago this was, 2023. That's a different style of test map. Anyway, so we're going to call this the Tilemap test save 1. .json, that's what we want. Save. Now let's check our logs. No errors. So that should have saved. I don't see any errors here. So let's open it up and take a look. So right here, I have my map test 1.json, and I'm going to want to open that in Notepad++. You can open that in Notepad++. All right, there it is. Awesome, look at that. So it looks like everything saved correctly. See, it's nice JSON. How many do we have? Only 28,000 lines, that's fine. So that should run fine. Now, if you want, you can make it so these stay all in the same line and it uses up less space, but it worked for us, okay? So it's got our array, it's got our tile map. Now the goal we need now is to load this back in. So we have our JSON save. Now we need to be able to load that back in. Cool. All right, let's close this down, and let's just close this down. We want to be able to load this map back in. So if you take a look at that, that's what we want. Cool. But we got to make sure that this stuff is loaded as well. So anyway, so that's doing what we wanted. Now we have to do the load tile map from JSON function. Now this one I kind of left to you guys to see what you could do, see what you could figure out. And you had to kind of look into RapidJSON and how to load files or load different streams. Okay. So we're going to handle that right now. So the first thing I'm going to want to get is an if stream. So it's std if stream, and we're just going to call this map file. Okay, and then we're going to say map file dot open and s tilemap file. Now we want to check to see if the map file did in fact open. So map file dot is open, and if not, we're going to have an error. Let's say if not open, error, failed to open tilemap file. Return false. All right. So now the first thing I want to do is actually read the buffer into a file stream so I can work from there. Okay. So I'm going to go std string stream. And we'll just call this file stream. Oh, no, we'll just call it SS. Then we can say SS map file dot read buff. Then I want to make those contents into a string. So I want to say std string contents. And that is going to equal to the not file stream SS dot string. And now we want to do a RapidJSON string stream and give it those contents that we just created. So I can go RapidJSON string, not string buffer, string stream. And we're going to call this the JSON string. And we say contents dot cstring. And now we need to create a RapidJSON document, and we're going to want to parse that stream. Okay. So for that, we go RapidJSON document. We'll just call this doc. Then we'll say doc.parse stream JSON string. Okay. So right here, we want to check to see if there's any errors. So we want to go if not doc dot, well, let's say if has parse error, or doc dot is object not. We're going to have some errors here. So I want to say scion error failed to load tilemap file is not valid JSON. And then give the error. And that's going to be S tilemap file rapid JSON get parse error doc get parse error doc dot get error offset, and then return false. The problem with parsing JSON is you need to know what the keys are for my array, it's going to be the tilemap. So I know that it's going to have that. Okay. And then we can go from there. So the first thing I want to get is a RapidJSON value, and we'll call it tilemap. So const RapidJSON value reference tilemap is equal to doc at tilemap. Now I know it's there. Now you could do doc dot has member, then go from there. But I know it's there. If you don't feel comfortable doing it like that, check to see if it has the member. So if not tilemap dot is array, because it needs to be an array. Also, if tilemap dot size is less than 1, well, we have an error here. So we want to go scion error failed to load tilemap file there needs to be at least one tile. We'll leave that as tilemap file. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So we know this is an array. So what we want to do is actually loop through the array. Okay. And that will be a bunch of tile objects. So we want to go for const auto reference tile in tilemap get array. Then right here we can create a entity and call this the new tile. So entity new tile registry, and don't worry about giving it any names or whatever, that doesn't matter. And now we want to get the components. Now each one should have components because we put it in there. Okay, so we can go const auto reference components is equal to tile at components. Now again, this is another one where you could put a check in to make sure that it has this member, and if it doesn't have that member, then you can skip it or warn or something like that. But it should have this member unless someone was messing with the JSON file. Feel free to add that stuff in. I'm gonna leave it for now. If we have problems later, we'll add that stuff in. Now that we have the components right here, we have this components, which is a JSON value, a RapidJSON value. We can get the transform component. They all should have transform components, okay? So we can just say transform, and then we can say const auto reference JSON transform is equal to components at transform. Then we can go auto reference, and we can just say transform is equal to new tile dot add component transform component, and we're just doing a default transform here. Why? Because I want this returned, because our add component will return a transform component reference, and we need that for deserialize. So we can now call deserialize component, and this will take in our serializer and a component ref. So it's not necessarily a serializer. So let's actually go back, because I need this JSON transform. I need to send this in, and the component reference, and that's this transform. So let's go back to here real quick. This isn't a serializer. This is a table. Okay, or a value, but I'll say table, because if we do Lua, or when we do Lua, it'll be a Lua table or a JSON table per se. Okay, so let's go back here. So there's our transform. That's all we need to do. So let's copy this and do the sprite, because it should, all of them should have sprites. JSON sprite, component sprite. Awesome. Cool. So we know they have a transform. We know they have a sprite. So now we need to check to see if there's a member. So what I was saying before, we need to check if the components has the member of box collider. And if it has a member, that means this has a box collider. Okay. So if components dot has member box collider. Now we got to go and make sure that that is what we called it when we serialized. So we go to our component serializer and just verify. So where's box collider? Yeah, so it's box collider, circle collider, like that. For physics, we just called it physics. You know what I mean? Okay. Cool. Let's go back into here. So if box collider has member, then we basically want to do all this stuff again. Copy this. JSON box collider, box collider, box collider, awesome. Copy this, check for circle collider. Animation. And last but not least, the physics component. Grab this, paste. Physics. Physics. JSON. Physics. 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 Awesome. Cool. And if we got there, it should all be loaded. So basically we're just loading, going through all of our array. And if we get to the end here, we can just close the map file. So map file.close and then just return true. That's it. All right, guys, that should work. Now, I'm not sure if it will. Let's try it. Let's build it and see what happens. Okay, we built with no errors. However, I forgot to add it to the open. So let's go here, close this, go to the menu display. And we basically want to do the same thing here, but in open. We weren't doing anything here, which is great. We already have all this. Let's change this to open tilemap test. Change this to JSON. If it is, let's go here. We can copy all of this. Paste this in here. Current scene. Failed to load. Failed to load. Change this to load. There we go. That should be it. And I don't think I'm missing anything. Let's run it and see what happens. All right, so it's expecting a few things. So what I need to do is go to scenes, load this scene. If I just loaded it right now, we don't have any tile sets, so it'll just be a blank screen until we add those tile sets. So we'll just run this scene so we have all our stuff. So now we have our tile sets loaded. We have our scene loaded. We go here, file, open, save file, run. Bang, look at that. That's all of our stuff loaded back. So now we can actively create tile maps and load them. Now, we don't have box colliders or anything like that, but we're going to be adding that very shortly. So we're going to be able to load maps and have our tile eventually copy over to our scene, the active scene. So we'll be able to copy that over. So we're getting close. But now we can actually load, create, and save tile maps. We can't change the layers or anything, but we'll get there. We're getting very close. All right. So that's it for this video. I just want to show you, I've been dabbling with the main engine that I created is much further ahead. You can actually make games. However, I have another one that I've been working on that's based on this engine and it's further ahead to allow me to make these videos. So let me show you where we're at with that. So I'll just close this. So yeah, this is where the actual, where we're heading very shortly. We'll be able to load a scene and you see we have this scene hierarchy over here and we have our scene and eventually we'll be able to add game object. See, I just right click, add game object, and it gives me a game object. And you're going to be able to see the different object details over here on this side. And you can just change its name. We'll call it a light. I've actually added lighting in. We're going to be getting to that. The only problem is we're going to have to change the way that we do our sprite for lighting. So let's add some tiles in here. This is just something I grabbed. Just a print screen that I did just for testing. And then we'll just make our level down, make a few. Don't know why it acted that way. Cool. So we have this, and now, so I called this a light. So if we go here, eventually this is what we'll be able to do. Right click, add component, and then it'll give us a list of components to choose. And then we can add a light component right here. Cool. Now we have a light component and it allows us to do these different things. So you can't see anything right now. So let's, even if I add this like to 1, 1, 1, and then leave it here and make attenuation 64. Okay. You don't see anything, but the light is on. So in order to see it, you have to enable lighting. You see there, now we have our light. And then what we can do is like just move it. So this is based on the transform here, 256, 256. So we have our light there. And what we can do here, break that out. And you can see that it is a light, right? And if we move it, go back here and go to our position, we can move the light. You see we're losing sight. So this is just an ambient color that we have right now. And if I go here, I can disable lighting and it's basically, you can just go back to creating your tile maps. Okay. So that's where we're heading. We're almost there. And you can just add more game objects as you go. And these are all based on the current scene. So if I take this and create a new scene here, we can add a new scene and drag that in. It has nothing. You see it has nothing. Now this needs to clear. We'll get to that. I'm not clearing it right now. So what it is looking at the active pointer and the point of a specific entity. So if I do this, it should change right here, add, and we can add component. And we have a new sprite component coming. All right. And we'll get into all that. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And that's it for now. Take it easy.